What's up, everybody, and welcome to episode 167 of Two Amazon Sellers and a Microphone, brought to you by Solozo and NetRush. And today,
there you go. You got it again.
I got it. I'm getting it now. Solozo and NetRush. I'm getting the hang of it now. Well, today we're going to be talking about why you must protect your brand on Amazon. And this is just a part of our series here where we're sort of highlighting some of the service offerings at NetRush, and brand protection is a huge one. So today we've got a great guest for this from NetRush, John Hildreth. How are you doing, man?
I'm great. How are you guys? Thanks for having me.
Hanging in there.
Yeah, we are hanging in there. And also, it's a pleasure to work with you. We've had a lot of fun. We've had a lot of really cool meetings, learning about all the different departments and offerings, etc. And just like everyone else, you're great. we're having a really good time meeting everybody. So on that note, why don't you let everyone listening and watching right now know a little bit more about your background before we jump into all the brand protection and why you must protect your brand. Let's learn about you, John.
Sure. Well, first and foremost, right back at you. It's been great to meet all the Solozo folks, and then getting the deep dive on like the product and the platform in general. I already knew it was cool from, what I had heard before and impressive. And then getting, you guys taking us through like what the product and platform looks like. It's pretty incredible. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the future. But yeah, so I'm currently the business development manager at NetRush. So for a lot of prospective brands coming into the company, I'm usually the first face they see representing NetRush. But prior to that, I actually worked at the marketing team at Fjallraven, which is a current brand partner of NetRush for about, I think, like 4 or 5 years now. So I worked on the marketing team there for a couple years, and it was pretty interesting. I didn't work directly with NetRush at the time, but the more I learned about the company and the space, the more I valued what an Amazon partner does. There's a difference between, just a service provider, someone that sells your products on Amazon, and a true partner. And I think, partnership and partners, a term that's thrown around a lot. But with a brand like Fjallraven that's super specific in how they tell their story and, what they look like, it's important to have a true brand extension, working for you on Amazon. So the more I learned about the space and the company and the capabilities, the more interest I had to be part of those teams and to help other brands, reach their goals on Amazon.
What was your job over there at Fjallraven? What was your day-to-day look like? You said you're on the marketing side. What does that look like as like controlling a brand? What does that do?
Yeah, so I had a number of different positions, starting off on the field marketing side of the business. So working on the marketing team, so mapping out like what the major campaigns for the year, kind of the go-to-market strategies. But with that platform, what was really fun, that program, we worked really adjacent with sales. So everything from, selling in the assortments to different retailers to figuring out how you were going to sell through. And the other fun part was working with, big companies like, Urban Outfitters and Nordstrom and REI, these massive retailers, but then also the small mom and pop specialty, independent retailers that, are just as fun to work with, across the board. So.
Yeah, but they don't order enough, right? You get onesies and twosies. You don't get enough.
Totally, orders. It's and like all businesses, sometimes it's not your biggest clients that require the most amount of work, right, to be honest and fair. But it's also, that shed a lot of light for me not just telling your story on Amazon or a digital marketplace, but also looking at your distribution. Where is the product going? Who is going to be selling it at the end of the day, and how are they going to be selling it at the end of the day, and making sure that I think it's a brand's responsibility to do everything they can to help sell through, because when a retailer has product that's not moving, that's when MAP policies are violated. That's when they might go to channels that maybe they're not supposed to move through that product.
What were some of the things at your current position? And I know we're talking about the past here, but I kind of want to get some context. What are some of the things that were like headaches for a brand like that? A well-known brand that you worked at. What are some things that just you're constant trying to break down doors and deal with it all the time on Amazon?
Yeah, so for sure, the biggest one would be, and it was such a fun brand to work with. I have to say this, working with a brand whose core consumer is everyone from teenage female with the backpacks to 50 plus male with the technical pants, for example. And so everyone in between could be a core consumer of the brand. So that was really special. But one of the biggest hurdles, and I would talk to people all the time and they say, oh, I love Fjallraven, I love this brand. Oh, you guys make clothing too? I thought you just made these backpacks that are the most popular item, right? So one of the biggest hurdles is, all the retailers wanted, the core product that everyone knew. It was the hotcakes, if you will. A little bit more challenging of a sale for the high priced apparel that doesn't have as much brand recognition. So supporting the entire assortment and portfolio, that was kind of one of the bigger challenges.
So when did you transition to your role at NetRush?
I'm coming on just about a year. Like I think
You're new
and
too. You're pretty new.
I am, yeah. So I think it's December now. So I think it's like, I have like 5 more days, I think, till my my actual hire date.
There you go. Congratulations.
Yeah, appreciate it. Yeah, it's wild. It's I think the time warp that COVID is. I can't believe it's only been a year, and I can't believe it's already been a year.
No kidding. Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about that. That is a time warp. I mean, we went remote. I mean, how long ago was that? It's coming up on 2 years.
Yeah, 2 years. And that's crazy, right?
I mean, that is hard to even believe.
Yeah.
It's hard to believe that it's been that long.
I'm sure I'm not the only one that keeps referring to like, oh, last year before COVID. It's like, well,
yeah.
I mean, 2 years ago, I guess. Yeah.
Like COVID doesn't count as a year. Like
Yeah.
we all lost a year.
Yeah. It's crazy. Yeah. And boy, it took the e-commerce world on a roller coaster ride. That's for sure.
It sure has. Yeah. And sped up, I think, a lot of things we already knew were happening, right? It's just, like pouring gasoline on the fire.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about brand protection, specifically on Amazon. In general, what does that mean? Like, what are you protecting?
Sure. And I think for me, it's like 2 sides of a coin. First and foremost, I did want to like share a stat because there's a number of things that I find super interesting right now. So this one's from Jungle Scout. Amazon advertising report. They're saying 74% of U.S. consumers are starting their search for a brand or product on Amazon. I mean, that is a wild number. And whether that's completely accurate or somewhere in the ballpark, that is the vast majority of people, starting and potentially having their first touch point with a brand or product on Amazon. So, omni-channel strategy is a term, that's getting thrown around a lot, which I really love. And it's super important that Amazon's part of it. So brand protection, what is it? It's, we kind of look at it as like 4 main pillars. So price parity, controlling the price on Amazon, the presentation, what does your brand look like? What's the story you're telling? In an ideal world, your product and your brand, it looks the same as, your direct to consumer website, your brick and mortar presence, your big online retailer partner, and the digital marketplaces. It really needs to look the same. So there's kind of the, enforcement and, pricing, that side, I think. And then there's the content and media and storytelling side.
What are some things that you've seen kind of recently? What are some things that you're kind of combating? Like what are, you got brands you work with. What's going on in the marketplace as far as like gray hat tactics or map pricing violations or unauthorized sellers. What are some common things that you're seeing with that?
Yeah, those are the big ones. Those are the big points. And I kind of look at it as it's almost like similar to like, you know, you getting in shape or losing weight, right? It doesn't happen overnight. We'd all like to flash forward to the before and after pictures, but you got to do the work in between. So yeah, gray market sellers, with that comes so many different problems. The price discrepancies, how much does this product cost? Consumers never want to feel like they're getting, they want to feel like they're getting the best deal all the time, right? So it's confusing and disheartening when they don't, but also it's confusing about the value of the product and the value of the brand. So that's one problem. Finding out the distribution, as far as when you have a whole bunch of gray market sellers out there, it's hard to track and to prepare for the future. How much inventory do you need to have? How do you plan? So it can just spiral out of control. It's wild to see when I look at brands all the time and kind of evaluate brand presence on Amazon and other digital marketplaces. Some incredible heritage brands that have incredible presence in brick and mortar and online, and they might have over 200 sellers on Amazon.
Yeah.
We get that call. We get that a lot where we'll talk to potential clients and they're like, I don't even want to mess with Amazon. It's a mess. I got all these unauthorized sellers. They don't even sell on Amazon. They're confused on how somebody got their product to sell on Amazon. And so they don't even want to combat it. And the barrier to break down is, look, you can be that seller and get those other sellers off the platform. And now you control the page, you control your brand presence. But that's a lot of work, right? Like that's a lot of work to get it to that point.
That's the thing. It's really scary. This is a really fun topic, right, to talk about, because it's such a pivotal point of a true omni-channel strategy. But it's fun to talk about. It's, to be honest, like it's not super fun to really do the work. It's a lot. When you look at how many gray market sellers are on Amazon, you don't know where they're coming from. You don't know who they are. You don't know how they're getting the product. That's kind of one of those things where you want to look away and hope that it solves itself. And it doesn't happen that way. You have to have the internal buy-in. You have to have, the people that have the ownership, have the resources and the time available, and also the alignment to really solve the problem and to go on that, strict diet.
It's time now, like, a couple of 5-6 years ago, maybe even later than that, brands didn't have like an Amazon team internally, right? It was just e-commerce, control our website. We kind of sell on Amazon, but we're really focused on our website. Now you have to have an Amazon team, and that's where NetRush comes in. What does that look like if a brand comes to us? How do we evaluate if they're a good fit for brand protection?
Sure. I mean, and we can work with it, the full spectrum. I mean, ideally, like our teams, it's a lot easier to work with a group that has like a clean slate, right? It's a lot easier to lay that foundational work down when they don't have, a massive amount of gray market sellers and all that. It's getting internal alignment and figuring out, who needs to do the work to get things going. So a lot of the times, it's going to be, making sure the sales manager and the director of sales, they're working with their sales reps to make sure that, they're not giving mixed incentives to sell. POs are great, especially for brands starting off. You want to get the sales going, so you have income coming into your company. In a big PO at the beginning is great, but if that big PO at the beginning turns to, that's the one PO for a long time, and then all of a sudden your product's showing up on Amazon and it's at a super low price, lower than MAP, and it's not representing your brand right. Well, that's really bad in the long run. And it's really hard to overcome. You mentioned something, Kris, about like brand saying, like, how did I even get on Amazon? Like, I didn't want to be on Amazon. And that's a thing. I think Rob Principe, I've heard say, a director of business development at NetRush, if your brand, if there's any sort of amount of people wanting it, if there's any desire to have your product, it's going to be on Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Someone's going to get it. It's going to get there. And I feel like at this point in time, while things are changing, we're talking about Amazon, but the growing digital marketplaces out there, the Walmart Pluses of the world, the Targets, those are going to be continuing, to have opportunities for gray market sellers as well.
Yeah, I think COVID, I know we talked about it before, but it really highlighted this for a lot of those like legacy heritage type brands that you're talking about. I mean, and we can use sort of one of these examples and sort of walk through this process, but a legacy brand, their core model obviously was POs to brick and mortar. They've got all these distribution points where they're selling their products through. And so that was their main business. Obviously COVID hit and now they had to pivot, potentially try to capture their online sales, much of which is Amazon. And they're going on Amazon and they're realizing, why is there like 19 different listings for my same product? Why are they all horrible? Why is it one image? Why are there 50 sellers on each one of these? And they've all got repricers running and the price is just plummeting. And, we just found out that all these people we've been distributing products to are using Amazon as like a liquidation channel for stuff that's not selling, and it's not representing us well at all. And so now they're trying to get on there, and you don't even know where to start. And you can't even half the time update your own listing because there's 50 other sellers all making adjustments to that listing, and you've got to gain control over it. So let's walk through a scenario like that. A brand it hasn't been focused on Amazon. They haven't even made any listings or anything, and now they've got to gain control over it. Where do we start, and what are the steps that we start taking to walk that brand through owning their presence on Amazon?
Sure. So it really starts off, and we work with brands to do this with them, but it really starts off with them, having the internal alignment from the top to the bottom. What is the strategy? So do you just want to, get rid of the gray market sellers? Do you just want to, control this, right? Which is of course a part of it, but do you want to, grow sales as well? Do you want to have a specific assortment for Amazon? I think a lot of brands like the type that you just mentioned, the heritage brands with a lot of brick and mortar presence, it might make sense to have a small assortment for Amazon, to not have the full spectrum of their products, depending on what their goals are. But it really starts with internal alignment. And with that, figuring out like what's the rational distribution, making sure that the incentives are aligned, designing it to get rid of these gray market sellers. So working with brands, we help them create a strong policy foundation. So making sure that they have the right policies and the right agreements internally. So when they sell their product to a retailer, it's set in stone what they can and can't do, and where they can and can't sell their product. The big foundational step too, though, is brand registry. So, the brand having, brand registry with Amazon, that's putting the reins into their hands as far as, working with Amazon to say, hey, this person's not allowed to be selling this. That's not allowed.
Let's go into that brand registry, and another one I'm going to bring up is the transparency program. Two things that brands should immediately enroll in order to protect their brand on Amazon. First one is the brand registry. We've seen over the last what's been that 2-3 years, Amazon's really like embraced brands. Years past, it's been free for all. You're a seller, you can't validate it, but recently Amazon has been more like embracing the brands and letting brands kind of control their own message. Is that what you're seeing too?
Yeah, yeah, and I think there's still almost this like stigma that these problems are being caused by Amazon, and to be honest and to be fair, they're not being caused by Amazon anymore. I don't think. I mean, and you look at the statistics of how many fraudulent accounts have been taken down from Amazon due to their own AI and to their own programs. You do have to give credit where credit's due. They have done a lot to remove counterfeit products and remove sellers. The way I kind of look at it, it's almost like Social Security. Theoretically, there should be some Social Security for me when I get older.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm going to use all the tools I have now to not rely completely on it. I'm not going to rely completely on Amazon to clean these systems up, but I am going to use the tools like Brand Registry being, the number one to do my due diligence to protect the brand.
When's it a good time for brands to really get their presence? A lot of sellers on Amazon are going to be smaller brands, right? They just come up with a brand name, they made it up, and they just throw a product up there. But when is a good time for them to take that serious and for them to really like hone in on their brand message on the platform?
I mean, I think it's going to be situational, but I think it's when they have the time and resources to do so. I think if they do, then it's like an easy answer. Like, then you should be doing it. Like if you have the bandwidth, if you have a team member who can own it, then you should.
Let's talk about somebody is a violation. Someone's in violation. So a brand you work with comes to you and says, John, ABC seller is screwing up my brand here, and I got to get them off my listing. What's the steps we take?
Yeah. So and again, that comes back to Brand Registry and access to it. So NetRush, for example, we have some brand partners that we act as a reseller. And we have some brand partners that we act kind of more of as an extension of their team. So it is a lot easier when we're acting as that extension through what we call like managed retail, because we can access their brand registry. It's we're saying, hey, Amazon, this gray market seller, they're not allowed to be doing this. That's coming basically from the brand at that point. Whereas, sometimes it can, there can be a couple more steps involved when it's as a reseller, we're saying, hey, we're allowed to sell that. That reseller over there, they're not allowed to sell that. Yeah, so that's kind of what that process.
We're working with two. We got two options. Like we're either the seller or representing the brand. What is the most common violation? I'm assuming it's a price violation, but what are some common violations you see?
The clear-cut answer to that, yeah, I think it's the price violation. But for me, as someone, especially when you're talking about a premium brand that has a very specific story to tell, when you have, even if no one's violating MAP, and I've seen this example recently where there really wasn't any violation of pricing involved, but there were 35 sellers for one product, and it's super confusing to the consumer. It doesn't look good. I really appreciated a number of the things that was said with your last conversations with Brian Birch and with Rob Principe. And one of the things you and Brian Birch were talking about were, the experience of opening packages, right? And how, even in like the packaging right now, we're interacting with consumers. And how important that is. And when you open like a product from Apple, it's just such an experience. Like we can all understand and agree that like every aspect is so experiential right now, in such a good way to interact with your consumer. When a consumer is looking for your product and there's 35 listings and there's different content and there's suboptimal photos and you're missing the features and benefits or not telling the story right, even if they're not breaking price agreements, it's still not good for your brand. It's still not good for your consumer, and it's not good for you in the long run.
There's other things too. I mean, not just price and not just like unauthorized sellers, but I mean, or this could be an unauthorized seller, but I mean, if you're selling, like a supplement or something, they could be selling expired supplements, or there's all kinds of things that would misrepresent your brand. Damaged, like you were talking about, they could be damaged, they could misrepresent the condition, it might be used. There's so many ways that it's a never-ending battle, I would assume.
And especially to that point, Dustin, with things about ready to be expired date wise, if a company like a CPG company's produced too much, they might end up selling a bunch of it off, like kind of in a liquidation fashion to a
Right.
distributor, which is probably going to be a little bit looser as far as who's getting this product, and you're almost teeing it up for these gray market sellers to come on Amazon because they need to get rid of it too now, and you've kind of passed that problem along to them. And then you have a gray market seller not representing the brand right and selling, a consumer something that's about to go bad.
Yeah, I've been through this. There's a local store here. It's called the $5 store. And so
I was just going to bring this up.
all it is Amazon returns, and it could be anything, like anything. And so whatever you buy is $5, but you immediately list it on Amazon. And like right after that, you immediately get a cease and desist from the brand. So it's those types of things. Like if you do liquidate, you better be ready, because there's people that do that they just buy and resell it.
Again, as interesting and as exciting as this topic is, it's not necessarily fun.
No.
It's not easy, and it's a lot of hard work involved. The other big piece too is not just the missing on the content, the brand storytelling, and the map violations, but also the lack of data. When you're selling it, or you're working with a trusted partner to sell it for you on Amazon, you're able to plan a lot better. You're able to own that communication back and forth, which is helpful for not just in your Amazon efforts, but in your D2C and in your brand in general.
Yeah, we're seeing more besides just Amazon. We're also seeing Walmart take over market share. Are you talking to any brands about that? Is that happening as well? Is Walmart still kind of where Amazon was 5-10 years ago?
I think so, and I wanted to bring that topic up too, because I think there were a lot of good points made in your last couple conversations where it's super clunky for sellers, it's super clunky for consumers, it's kind of a drop in the ocean sales wise, but it hopefully the growing competition will make things a bit better for selling on Amazon, and maybe some less fees, and I think with Walmart Plus especially, there will be an improvement in both the interface and using it in general, and also the sales are going to grow too. But yeah, I think there's already a lot of this when it comes to brand protection, a lot of the same issues we're talking about here growing there.
Yeah. There's going to be, I think people are going to have to start paying attention to this. I mean, because that brand protection goes both ways. I mean, I remember when I first launched my first brand, was getting into this space, put it on Amazon, started selling it, and then I would Google my product. And I'm like, it's on eBay, it's on Walmart, it's like everywhere. I'm like, who are these people selling? I mean, their price is like 30% higher than what it's misrepresenting it. Obviously, they have to buy it from me to begin with, but it goes both ways, and you can see that already happening. Brand, you can create listings on Walmart for brands that are selling on Amazon, basically flip that product or buy it for cheaper and sell it for more. So you're gonna have to look both ways at protecting your brand. I think this is what this whole concept is about. Brand protection is, how do you get your full messaging across all of your channels that you're selling?
And telling the same story, being that single source of truth, because like what you're talking about, the consumer's grown so fond of like the free shipping and the quick delivery that they expect from Amazon. So even if they're searching around for the best price, they might go to the products direct to consumer site. They might see a listing on eBay. They're probably going to end up buying it from Amazon just for the free delivery, because that feels good, especially if the price is all basically the same. but you need to be telling that same story so that they feel good that they're not buying like a counterfeit product, or is this like a leftover? Is this like,
Right.
what is this? It's all part of the same system.
How are you guys monitoring this? I mean, this seems like just a never-ending war. I mean, you got to constantly be monitoring who's in the buy box, what their prices are. Are there any other like listings just straggling around Amazon that are of the same product? I mean, how does that get actively monitored on a consistent basis?
Yeah, it's a lot of work. It really is. Our teams, we have a number of people looking, at who's selling what the buy box percentages are, what are the key products that are have multiple sellers on. But then again, it does come back to working with the brand and the brand taking ownership too. So it's looking at their distribution channels, seeing and basically figuring out who's getting what, and are they selling it under a different name, figuring out where they're getting it from. So I think a number of our business partners that started off in a really tough space with a lot of gray market sellers, and have been able to break it down. It usually takes honestly between I think 12, 13, 14, 15 months to really get it under control. And again, it's not something you can flip right to the before and after pictures. It's something you got to work for. You also have to be ready to go on the diet, to take a hit on some sales first and foremost. There is a dip involved when you're trying to really clean this up, but in the long term, it's much more profitable. You're telling your brand story the right way. Yeah.
So before there's brand protection, there's also distribution, and we also handle that. Why is that important? Like, if the brand wants to use our services, I think it starts with distribution. Would that be right?
Do you mean distribution and like fulfillment, or
both, either a seller or fulfilling orders? Because then we've got the inventory ready.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think for for a lot of the brands that are working with different distributors, there it can easily filter down into a lot of different paths. But yeah, owning a more single source, for example, like NetRush, having the ability to do all the fulfillment for FBA, in prep and injection there, but also to your direct to consumer website, to your business to business. We have the capability to, if REI is one of your biggest retailers, we can take a brand's entire inventory and manage all those channels for them, which, is a lot clearer of a picture of where the product's going, who's getting it. Yeah. And I mean, that's really at the end of the day, like full control over distribution.
Less messy, less questions, where it's coming from.
Exactly.
And then let's take that to the next step. What would be considered like a violator, like somebody like someone who's selling in violation your product? Because let's say it's a retailer that you sell to. What's stopping them from just listing it on Amazon? Is that a violation? Is MAP even something that matters? I mean, can it be enforced if they're selling for cheap price? And also, am I a violator if I go buy this at your product at clearance on Walmart and then resell, 1 or 2 units is that a violation? Because what's stopping me from doing that?
Totally. And all good questions, because at the end of the day, it's super situational. It's, what are the policies that you have written, that you have signed with that reseller? So, you can leave your reseller some leeway, and you can kind of let them have some control over it too. It could be you're allowed to sell, products A, B, and C, but not D on Amazon. Of course, like MAP pricing, you can only enforce so much, I think. But it does come down to, if someone's continually selling their product below your MAP, well, if you figure out who they are, you can shut them down. You can stop selling to them. So, it's really situational, which is why like it's so important to have those foundational policies in place to be able to, have the expectations front and center with the retailers.
But there's
And
no real way to stop somebody who's just flipping one item or something like that on there.
not really. I mean, it's also like juice worth the squeeze, right? Like,
Right.
where are you going to focus? Is it a top product? But at the end of the day, like you can, when you figure out who they are, you can just stop selling to them. And that's another thing I was thinking about, prior to this conversation, where you guys are both resellers, and a lot of your audience are resellers. And I think as a reseller, it in the long term, it really, if you have the ability to, you're buying products and you're selling them, and you don't have maybe specific agreements with these brands, I think it makes sense to do the best job you can to represent that brand the best you can. Because if you're not causing problems, well, then theoretically you should be able to keep your business going longer, and that's a win-win for the brand. It's where you start, when you don't represent your brands and your products the way they're supposed to be, you're selling it, under map. That's when red flags get flown up, and people start looking to, shut the resellers down.
You make a good point as far as like getting brands to allow you to be the seller. If a seller out there is looking to sell products on Amazon from a brand, you have to go to that brand and give them some type of value. Like, here's what I'm going to do for you. Your listing needs a better title, better bullets, you need better images. That's what we're going to do, right? Like, if you're trying to sell that brand, because you don't want to be just every seller that they're getting hit up by, right? These brands are getting approached by other services just to sell their product, and you got to kind of stand out. And I think that's what we do over at NetRush.
Totally, and that's why it's having a partner that can not only handle all this brand protection stuff we're talking about. This is a lot of work. Having the ability to do the due diligence for helping you write these policies and enforcing these policies. But also, if that same partner can, has a full studio team and can do all your A+ content, and revamp your brand store, and manage your listings, and I can also do ad campaigns and do all your PPC, well, now we're really, that's a holistic view of what I think a partnership is.
Yeah,
For sure.
Absolutely. It all intertwines. And we talk about this almost every time we have a conversation. Advertising is great as long as everything else is right. Are your listings right? Is your product high quality? Do you have inventory? None of those things live in a vacuum. And I think for a lot of brands, the concept of brand protection is just maybe a little bit removed from their focus on all these other core things that they're doing. But it's a super pivotal piece, and it has to tie into everything. Because like you mentioned, brand protection is also making sure everything looks cohesive across all your channels. Are all your images the same feel, the same story? That's part of it too. So it all ties together. That's why it's right. It's like, it's nice to have the brand protection team talking to the content creation team.
Totally. It's all part of the same puzzle. If you have the ads put in place to bring them to your listing, and then they get there and it's like, well, that doesn't look what I thought it looked like back when I saw it, on a shelf in a store, or on their direct to consumer, on their social media. It's like, oh, I guess that's not as great as I thought it was. Yeah, it's all part of the same game.
I feel like I can talk about this all the time. It's really fascinating, because it's kind of like figuring out ways other people are gaming the system to a degree, whether intentionally or not, and how it can really have an impact on your brand. I think it's fascinating, and it's really interesting to learn just how you guys are approaching this and helping brands and making a big difference. So if a brand is listening right now or watching, we're live, and they're really interested in learning more about this service, this brand protection service, or anything else, how can they get in touch with us?
So through our website, we've got a reach out, like a bot, if you will. Just go to netrush.com, and they can come in through that way. My email address is just jon. My last name, Hildreth, at netrush.com. Those are probably the best ways to reach out. Yeah, just netrush.com. I think it's pretty upfront as far as the bot goes. Like, reach out to us. Are you interested? Yeah.
Well, we got some good success stories over there too. You could check out the website. There's some really good success stories on people that we've helped with brand protection, and not only that, but the other services that we offer. And I think that's important to point out is we're not just doing the brand protection part of it. It can be a piece of other things that we offer, and you just kind of, it's like a puzzle piece, like a la carte this, a la carte that.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, if a brand's only interested in brand protection or, digital advertising or our 3PL fulfillment, we can do all those single service, and that's great. But you do also have the ability to do the whole robust, full encompassing partnership, which, depending on the brand, one might make more sense for the other. If you just need an a la carte piece, well, that's great. We can do that. But if you want the full partnership and all these different pieces working together in sync, we can do that too.
It's really exciting. It should be really exciting for any brand that's listening.
Yeah, when you see the brands that, when you go to their direct to consumer site and you go to their Amazon store and you look at their listings here, or you look at their listings on a rei.com, and it's all the same story, that's what a consumer's looking for today.
Oh yeah. And that takes work, and you need a team of experts to do that for you. And we got them.
Exactly.
Well, John, we got to get you back on again, because we could actually probably talk for 30 minutes on each one of those topics. Like controlling the buy box and controlling pricing and contracts with distributors. I mean, there's so many things that we could talk about. So we'll definitely get you back on to talk about some of those in more detail. But thanks so much for joining us for this. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. I look forward to it.
Well, everyone who's listening, if you're interested in any of those services, go to netrush.com. You can fill out the form and start the conversation. If you're looking specifically for advertising automation or management, you can go to solozo.com. You can book a demo. You get to talk with either Kris or myself on those demos. We can talk about anything, and then we can talk about all of any other needs that you have and get you in touch with the right people at NetRush to help solve those needs for you. So go to solozo.com or netrush.com and fill out the form. If you like content like this, make sure that you're subscribing to this podcast. If you're watching this live stream, or if you'd like to get notified when we go live, make sure that you're following our social channels. So Solozo on Facebook, Solozo on LinkedIn, and our YouTube channel. You make sure you subscribe to those, turn on notifications. You'll get a nice little ping on your phone when we go live with really cool people like John. All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. It's been a lot of fun, and we will see you all next time, probably tomorrow. Have a great one.